Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Half-Life podcast. I mentioned in my last video that I was toying with the idea of doing a Half-Life podcast very similar to what I'm doing with the Silent Hill podcast, where I chronicle the monsters throughout the game, because I had a really good time doing so. With regards to the Silent Hill monsters, all of them have very unique characteristics, wonderful designs. It was great to talk about them and then the trivia associated with them. So I wanted to see what other place is really similar to this, and it immediately drew me to the game Half-Life. And with Half-Life, it's pretty much like a cryptids and monsters on steroids when it comes to this type of world. There are so many wonderful creatures within this universe that I wanted to go ahead and create a podcast where I would dedicate within each game the monsters that will be featured, and then that way I'll be able to present information on them, what they do, what their habits are, how to defeat them, and then hopefully some good trivia associated with them too. By the way, in order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to discontinue some of my other podcasts, like the ones for the Ninja Turtles podcast, and then the ones for the Punisher, and then also the Las Vegas one. And I think I probably do also like the Godzilla rant stuff, only because it seems like the public has spoken. There hasn't been too much enthusiasm with those podcasts. So also anything involving news, like the Punisher one and the Ninja Turtles, those are hard because if the news is like a day late, then it's $1 short, it's gone, and so it's hard to keep up with that stuff. I'll definitely continue to do the Godzilla news podcast, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, with this one, let's see how this goes. If it goes as well as the Silent Hill podcast, then absolutely I will continue with regards to all the beautiful games in the Half-Life 1. So this one, let's go ahead and we'll start with the monsters in Half-Life 1, the very first game. Absolutely beautiful game, definitely a game changer, no pun intended, when it comes to the world of PC games. And the most common enemy by far, I think even more so than anything else, is the Vortigaunt, which I'll talk about here. You're looking at it, if anyone who's played the game in their youth knows exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to these common enemies. They were probably what would be considered the main grunts of the game. They were the ones that were the most prolific, the most annoying, but at the same time, it was amazing to see how throughout the rest of the franchise they would later take on a whole new different meaning. For the sake of this podcast though, I'm only going to focus on them with regards to this game, like the first game. And then eventually when I start reaching other games like Half-Life 2 and then episodes 1 and 2, then that's when I'll start really talking about the Vortigaunts in those regards. But this one, the only information I'll relate to is the Vortigaunts in this game. So again, they are pretty much the grunts in this game. They are also the first ones encountered within the game itself. Anyone who has played the game and remembers fondly knows that time period. It was that specific part, anomalous materials, the chapter, the one that was called, where the whole mess starts, where the world literally starts crumbling down. That's when Gordon, the main character, he has the crystal, whatever that thing was, pushed into the portal. It starts creating that breach. Everything starts falling from the test chambers, the ceiling, the buildings, stuff starts collapsing. And as there's portals being opened left and right, one of the instances involves Gordon being sucked into another realm, like a dark room of some sort, and then that's where he meets these guys, 4 of them. And that's the very first monster. And then with regards to them appearing elsewhere, they do later on obviously appear, and they become one of the most common staples within the game itself. What's interesting to note is that these things, these Vortigaunts, there's a lot of hidden characteristics within them. For example, when I was first playing the game, I remember that I saw, obviously like everyone else, that they had some kind of like green collar or some kind of wristbands on their hands and then green collars on their necks. And I didn't quite catch the symbolism then that it was supposed to be essentially them being slaves to the Nihiloph, which is the final monster within the first game. I didn't quite catch that. I just thought that they were just mindless zombies, like mindless monsters. But no, apparently that means that they are enslaved and controlled by the final monster within the first game. Also, with these Vortigaunts, after encountering them throughout the game, you'll realize that they have a very different set of personalities. Right when you first come across them, and it was so much fun to do so because one of the biggest shocks in the game, and you know the moments that I'm talking about, you're walking, let's say you're going through some kind of office hallway, and then when you reach a certain part where the script of the game prompts it, one of these babies will just teleport right in front of you. Like, it'll pop up and it'll have its green energy beams, its lightning like energy beams ready to shoot. And I remember those things would, like, those instances would scare me because I would always have the sound on loud and I would make sure that I was immersed in the game. So whenever you reach that point and you know it's there, one of my favorite instances was later on when you would have grenades, or you would have those I don't know what those weapons are called, the remote charges, and you knew that that's where the location where the game script would prompt these things to pop up. One of my favorite instances was to throw as many of those things as I could and then go far enough to have the game, sure enough, pop up the Vortigaunt, and then that was it. Once it popped up, press the button and then watch it be blown to smithereens. So as far as its characteristics, what's interesting to know is that some of them did indeed do that. They would teleport right in front of you and they would just shoot as quickly as possible. Others seem to have more of like a, again going back to the word grunt, they seem to have like a field attack of some sort where they'll attack and then they'll scatter behind something and then they'll attack again and then they'll scatter again. So they became very resourceful enemies to attack, and especially if they were in groups, because the common theme also was, part of their characteristics was that they hunted in packs. And so if you saw one Vortigaunt, let's say in the middle of a hallway, then chances are you're going to have other Vortigaunts. And then by far what their most unique characteristic was, if you hit a Vortigaunt enough times, like let's say you didn't actually do any kill shots, but if you hit them enough times and damaged them enough times, they would actually run away. Like, they would seek someplace else. They would go to some faraway corner away from you, so that way they could just stay there and hide. And of course that made them easy prey at that point. But that was really fascinating to see the first time, because I remember thinking, where's this guy going? I'm standing right in front of him and he's no longer attacking me, and sure enough, there he was trying to find some place to hide, and that of course made him really easy prey. Now, as far as how these Vortigaunts attack, obviously their main attack are those energy attacks, whatever that green lightning energy beam is. They do it again when they teleport instantly, or whenever they find you, that they'll shoot those beams straight towards you. It's pretty easy to get away from them, because if you time it right, those laser beams or whatever they are will only shoot straight. Like, they don't go around corners or they don't bounce off of things. So if you stand still enough and then you move at the last second, then the energy beams will just go right past you. But if you do get caught, then try to hide behind something, because they do again not go through certain things. And then the other attack that they have is, if they get close enough, they use their hands, like almost like a claw, like a melee of some sort, when it comes to their hand as weapons. And they'll simply just swipe at you several times. Do it enough times, and it can cause major harm, especially if the Vortigaunts happen to be in multitude, like if there's several of them right then and there. Also, later on in the game, they take on yet another unique characteristic. When you're near towards the final levels and you're getting closer to that big bad guy at the end, and you're in their world, there's like a factory of some sort, some alien factory that they're located in. The Vortigaunts there, in some cases, will either not attack you at all, because they're not used to you. Maybe they haven't seen you for the first time, and so they're not really in, I guess, in that fear mode just yet. They'll just look at you and then they'll turn away, and as long as you don't do anything, then they don't do anything to you. And then B, when these Vortigaunts are attacked and then they go through again through that damage mode, then they'll actually run to what's called a healing shower, and they'll stay there until the healing shower essentially heals them to full effect, and then that's when they'll attack yet again. So it's such a fascinating creature. I knew that when I was facing these Vortigaunts, that this was unlike anything else that, in terms of like enemies that one has faced before in other games. The creators of this Half-Life game, they absolutely put as much detail as they could in the Vortigaunts, knowing that they were going to be the most common enemies in the game. You couldn't make it so that they're just big, dumb, stupid, and just going straight towards you at all times like mindless, like bots of some sort. No, instead adding all these unique characteristics, it definitely made these Vortigaunts very memorable enemy, and so much so, of course, that they would later appear in every single game thereafter. And obviously when you start getting into Half-Life 2 and the subsequent episodes, my goodness, they take on a whole new role. And it was so beautiful the way that they ended up turning into allies of Gordon altogether. Now, I'm going to talk about those again in who knows how long future episodes when I start reaching those videos, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, otherwise, real quickly, let's talk about some of the concept art for the Vortigaunts. You're looking at some of the designs here. You'll notice that they went through a unique change. Like, they started, as strange as it sounds, to be far more alien-like than what you see now. I guess they decided to tone it down, the makers of the game, so that way they could ensure that it doesn't seem too far out of the realm when it came to these designs. And I think that was a good thing, because ultimately the Vortigaunts, it's almost like the idea where simple is better. Less is more, if you've ever heard of that saying. And I think that's where the way that they went with, the creators did with the game itself. And then one of the earliest known images of the game is this concept art. And I remember seeing this. This was somewhere, I'm trying to remember if it was like in some kind of gaming magazine of some sort, but I remember seeing this concept art and then seeing how unique it looked. Obviously, the most classic thing about it is the big red eye and how it stands out, and that has become almost like the trademark of the Vortigaunt. In all of its inceptions throughout all of the games, the Vortigaunts always have that giant red eye which stands out completely throughout the game. And then just one last thing, you're looking at some early models, some CG designs of the Vortigaunt, and the classic design. It has remained one of the few monsters, I guess, that has been changed throughout the series itself. It's so good, it's so classic, that very little tweaking has been done to its models, other than maybe just added detail, of course, as the games got better and better in resolution. But that's about it. Nothing else in terms of changing things outright. And this is also true of some of the other monsters like the head crab. Anyway, I'll talk about that in other videos. But otherwise, the Vortigaunt, very classic designs, has just pretty much stayed the same as is. So what do you guys think? The Vortigaunt, obviously one of the best creatures within the Half-Life game. Still a huge staple. If there's ever going to be any more Half-Life games in this franchise, no doubt this creature will be incorporated within it, and who knows how many levels. Even so much so that the fan base is so huge that there was even a cute little plush toy, which you're looking at a picture of here. I think it was given out or sold a couple years back, but it's been sold out for a long time. It was one of the first things sold out within the Half-Life store, and I believe it's whatchamacallit, it's like a popular toy, like it's a classic of some sort. If you're trying to find it now, you're going to be paying a pretty penny for it because of its rarity. But again, cute little thing. So it goes to show the fan base that this creature has. So, alright everybody, that's it for this inaugural Half-Life podcast. Be on the lookout for more, where I'll talk about more monsters within the first Half-Life game. Alright everybody, take care.